The story begins in a bar, where we see a biker named Benny enjoying his drink when two men approach him, demanding that he take off his jacket or leave the bar. They mocked Benny, but he ignored them, which made them furious. Losing patience, they started beating him up. Benny, without losing his cool, shouted, "You're gonna have to kill me to take this jacket off." Kathy, the narrator of this story, recounts all this in an interview with Danny. She fell in love with Benny, a member of the biker club, the Vandals. Imagine the scene. She meets Benny on a strange night at the Vandals club, where her first encounter is with Crocky and Wahoo, who try to flirt with her. It's like the beginning of a drama and romance movie. For those watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Kathy recalls her first date with Benny when he took her back to the bar after a motorcycle ride. Despite getting annoyed, she ended up falling in love with him, and within 5 weeks, they were married. Johnny, the club's president, treated Benny like his protege, planning to groom him to take over the club. But fate had other plans. Benny was brutally beaten by two thugs outside a bar, refusing to take off his jacket. He lost a foot and was hospitalized. Kathy took care of him all the time, but Benny cried, something she had never seen before. Johnny was furious and sought revenge, burning down the club and breaking the legs of Benny's attackers. A curious detail about this movie is that Benny's jacket became an iconic symbol of resistance and loyalty. The moment when Kathy gives Benny an ultimatum to choose between the club and her is crucial. If it were me, I might have acted differently, trying to find a middle ground. It's interesting to note how Johnny let Benny decide his own fate, showing a tragic irony in realizing that Benny himself couldn't walk away from the club even after the severe incident. During a Vandals picnic, Johnny and Benny discussed the club's future. Johnny wanted Benny to take over, but Benny suggested Brucey, whom Johnny considered too weak to lead. Johnny explained that the club needed someone powerful and respected. If it were me, I would opt for a more conciliatory dialogue between Johnny and Benny. Kathy reflects on how women always try to change their men for the better but often fail. She remembers a night when Benny and Johnny talked about the club's future, and she realized something was wrong. In her interview, she tells Danny that despite everything, she always loved Benny and wanted him to live a life away from the dangers of motorcycles. In another scene, Benny recalls Brucey's death and misses him dearly. The club changed completely after the tragedy, and the whole gang was down. They sent flowers to Brucey's house, but the family returned them, showing how much they hated the club. Johnny then decided to visit personally and asked the gang to bring flowers and go together. Later that night, Johnny had an emotional breakdown and told the story of a guy and his love for a bike he kept all his life, even though he could no longer ride it. At that moment, the kid and his group, the Renegades, showed up at the club wanting to join the gang. But Johnny, filled with emotion, said they didn't accept kids. The leader, offended, argued that he was over 20 years old and wanted to show off their bikes, which they organized on their own. Johnny, impressed, accepted the leader but on the condition of abandoning his friends. The kid, without hesitation, abandoned his friends, but Johnny, just testing his loyalty, refused his entry into the club, angering the boy. In the present, Danny talks to Kathy, curious about what happened to the club after Brucey's death. When Brucey died, Danny left town after finishing school in 1973. Back now, he wanted to know from Kathy how the club changed. She explains that there was a division between new and old members. Johnny was disappointed to see everyone drinking and smoking. Meanwhile, Cockroach told Danny, who photographed him, and revealed he wanted to be a motorcycle cop. The new members, hearing this, beat him up. Johnny, upon learning, rushed to his aid and took him to the hospital. Benny accompanied him, leaving Kathy alone at the club, where she was harassed by the new members. Johnny, upon returning, beat them up but couldn't find Benny. Cockroach, injured, asked Johnny for protection as he decided to leave the club. Benny, preparing to meet Johnny, grabbed a gun but was interrupted by a conversation about leaving the club. He refused but went to see Johnny, who took him to Cockroach's house. There, Johnny shot Cockroach in the leg to blame the new members for the attack, which didn't sit well with Benny, who questioned the club's future. Johnny wanted Benny to take over, but he refused and left. The story continues with Johnny receiving a visit from the kid, who now belongs to the Milwaukee Vandals. He challenges Johnny to a knife fight for leadership, which Johnny accepts. Before leaving, Johnny goes to Kathy's house looking for Benny but doesn't find him. Kathy mentions that Benny went to Indiana. The next day, Johnny prepares for the fight, but like a twist worthy of Goodfellas, Johnny is killed, marking the end of the golden era of bikes. The kid takes over and turns the Vandals into a criminal gang, with the original crew dispersing. Kathy and Wahoo join the new Vandals, while others like Cockroach fulfill their dreams of becoming motorcycle cops. If I were in Johnny's shoes, I would probably have handled the Cockroach situation differently, avoiding violence and seeking a more peaceful solution. An interesting point in the story is how the club's values change drastically with the entry of new members, showing how power dynamics can completely transform an organization. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. See you next time.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect.